All right. So we're going to I'm doing the tutorial on the Disney It's a Mouse thing that I made a couple years back and never made a tutorial for. So we're going to start with the cover here. The covers are 2 pieces of cardstock, 8.5 by 8.5. And then your spine is going to be a 3 by 8.5. And I've already got mine cut, and I've got my score tape already on it. To cover your album cover, you're going to need 2 pieces of cardstock cut 10.5 by 10.5, and 1 cardstock cut 6 by 10.5. So let's go ahead and get the cardstock on the card chipboard on our cardstock. Sorry, that was totally came out backwards. So okay, so using the awesome way that Tamara does her albums, I have picked it up and I love it. So I'm going to go ahead and set my 1-inch chipboard markers on here. I am using our Artsian cardstock red from Country Craft Creations, and you can find that on Tammy's online store, countrycraftcreations.com. Score sheets come from there. Chipboard comes from there. I'm using the for this album that I use Echo Park. It's a mouse thing. And then my second album, I used Echo Park Times to Remember, I believe it is. Let me double check. Remember the Magic. Remember the Magic is the other paper collection I used. So, okay, so that's the first one. I'm going to go ahead and do both before I go ahead and show you how I put them down. I tell you, these score sheets are just awesome. I love them. And they make it making your album so much easier and nicer. So I've got my 2 main covers done, and now we're going to do the spine. And on the spine, I do make my page a little bit larger than the 1 inch on each side. I make it 1.5 on the sides and 1 inch on the top from the bottom. And that's going to give me a little bit extra paper for when I add my 3 pieces together. And I'm just lining it up there. Okay, so I'll get rid of these. I'm going to go ahead and start with my covers. So all I'm going to do is fold it over and burnish it along the cardstock or the chipboard. On all 4 sides. I'm just going to come along and very gently run it against the side of my chipboard so I've got a nice smooth edge. I'm going to, on my score marks, I'm just going to cut it right up to the chipboard. Cut my 4 corners out. Then I'm going to miter my corners, and all I'm doing is folding that over, resting my scissors up against the corner of the chipboard, and cutting it away. Making sure I get all my corners, because I'm always leaving one, so I have to double check. Okay, get rid of those. And I'm just going to make sure that I've got nice, smooth edges. Sounds like your dog's getting sick, Hunter. Just adding the glue up against the chipboard and then over. And there's my one side of my cover, nice and neat. I'm going to do the same thing for my second one. Cut my corners. And I'm going to miter my corners. Bring that over. Okay, I'm not sure what I did there, but I'm still working on the covers. And I'm just adding my glue to my sides, right along my seam of my paper on my chipboard. Okay, and there's my second one. Let's do the spine. Now the spine we're going to do a little bit different. We're not actually going to cut the corners on the spine. So we're going to go ahead and fold it over just like we did the covers. Okay, so on the other ones we cut out those corners. We're not going to cut these out. We're actually gluing the whole piece down. So I'm just going to fold it over, burnish it to my chipboard, and on both edges. Okay. And I'm just going to come over here and crease them again. I'm going to come up here, just on the side of my chipboard, and kind of angle it off. On all four sides. Okay, and there we go. Now we're going to add the three pieces together. So I'm going to go ahead and put my score tape right next to my edge there on both sides. And I'm going to use this off. I'm just going to add glue right next to the score tape, not on it. Okay. I'm going to take this and I'm going to match it right up, edge to edge. Turn it over and make sure that I burnish it real good. other side the same way. Now, and I didn't cut these pieces, so I need to cut. Our book is 8.5 by 8.5, our album cover. So I'm going to cut these at 8 3/8 by, I'm going to cut it at, I'm going to cut it at 8. And I don't have any more score sheets. Let me see what I have. Maybe be able to piece it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take off these ones first. Actually, I'm going to take it all off. bringing it over. Let me do that on the other side. Okay, and there's your album. And there's the side. Okay, now let's make the hinge for inside the album. My pages are 8, so I'm going to make my hinges 7 7/8. For my hinge, I'm going to score it at 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 1/2. So 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 2, 2 1/2, 3, 3 1/2, 4, 4 1/2, 5, 5 1/2, 6, 6 1/2, 7, 7 1/2. I'll go back and count them now. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, 7 1/2, 8, 8 1/2, 8 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and I've got my 5. Starting on my 1 1/4, and then I've got my 1/4, then I've got my 2 1/2. I'm going to my second half, and I'm putting my score tape down. I'm skipping 2 and putting it on the third one. Skipping 2, putting it on the third one. Skipping 2, putting my tape on the third one. Skipping 2 and putting my tape on the third one. Oops. And then I should have the 1/4 right after that. Okay. And I'm going to fold that over, the first 1/2 inch score over, fold that back. So then I have 1, 2 1/2 inch, and then the tape. I want to fold that second 1/2 inch over onto the tape, and then fold the first one back. Okay, coming back here, I want to fold my 1/4 over, burnish it down. And I'm going to add my art glitter glue on that 1/4 area. Not going over the score line. And back, and I'm folding over my hinges. So I've got the 1/4 right there, and then I got to hit my first hinge, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Then I've got the 1/4 line here, which I'm going to fold that over. Okay. And I've got excess too much over here, so I'm going to mark it. And it's about a little over 1/2 inch. I'm going to bring it up to 3/4, and I'm going to cut off the 3/4. And then I'm going to add my art glitter glue again, not on that 1/4, just on the other side of that score line. I'm going to fold that over there. There's my hinge. And I'm not going to attach it to my book until I decide what I'm going to do with this album, as this is an extra album. So I'm just going to set that off to the side. Now, for my cover, inside cover, I will cover it with, find my cap to my glue, because I always seem to lose it. Oh, there it is. Okay, so for my inside cover, what I did was I cut a piece of cardstock that's 7 by 8.5, and I'm going to score 1/2 inch with the 7 at the top. I'm going to score 1/2 inch. Okay. And I will miter these corners when I attach it. But what I've done here is, so now this is before I add my pattern paper, but that's going to go right here on the inside cover, and it just flips right up like that. So what I did was I went ahead and attached mine. It's 6.5, so that's going to give you 1 1/4 on each from the top and the bottom. And I went ahead and attached mine, and then I just pieced my pattern paper on here So that way I wasn't wasting a whole sheet of paper. And then when I opened it up, I had the inside that I put another piece of pattern paper on. So that's the front of the cover. For the back of the cover, I made a waterfall with a tab that holds it down. So I've got 5 pages waterfall, and the 6th one is your bottom page. So for that, you're going to want to cut a 6 by 6.5 sheet, and you're going to need to cut 4.5 by 6. And on the 4.5, you want to score it at a 1/2 inch. On the 4.5 at the top, and score it at a 1/2 inch. And then you're going to cut a piece that's 1.5 by, and I'm not real sure how long I made this, but let me double check. By 4.5. 1.5 by 4.5. And then you want to score one in at a 1/2 inch. Okay. So the 6 by 6.5. So the 6 is at the top, and then it's 6.5 this way. This is your base, okay, for your waterfall. Okay, go ahead and burnish all these real quick. And you're not going to miter these. These are now 4 by 6, and these are going to be your waterfall. So you want to go ahead and add your adhesive. And what you want to do with the 6.5 here, you want to line this one right up, edge to edge. Okay. Take your next one and just line it right up to the edge and to the what you just laid down, to the 1/2 inch piece that you just laid down. And that's going to give you your 6th one here. That's going to be a 4 by 6 right there too. And then you fold that over. Get your piece that you burnished a 1/2 inch on. Going to add glue to the inside of this. And it's 1.5. I'm going to eyeball this, but you can just go ahead and put it, I eyeballed it so it's in the middle. And then I'll add a magnet on the back of this and the top of the back of this one. Back of this flap and the back of this, and then they'll hold it down. And then that's going to, once I paper the back of the album, this will go right here in the middle. And see, you almost don't really need it, but I do paper mine. So, okay, that's the album. And then we'll work on our pages next. There's 5 pages. You're going to need 5 pieces of 8x8 and 5 pieces of 8x9 cut to make your pages, and we will go into that next. All right, so let's continue on. We've made our album cover for our It's a Mouse Thing Disney album, and my second book is using the Echo Park Disney's collection, A Time to Remember. So let's start with our pages. Now we're going to need 5 pages. I've already done 3, so I'm going to do 2 with you. They're simple pages. You're going to cut 5 pieces of cardstock that are 8x8. Our pages are going to be 8 inches by 8 inches. And then you're going to need 5 pieces of cardstock that is cut by 8.5 by 8. Or I'm sorry, 9 by 8, not 8.5, 9 by 8. So 5 pieces of 9 by 8 and 5 pieces of 8 by 8. On the 9 by 8, you're going to score them on the 9-inch side at 1/2 inch and again at 8.5. So 1/2 inch and then 8.5. Turn it over and do it on the right side. And 8.5 and 1/2 inch. Okay. And as you can see, I already mitered one side of my edges. And that is, the reason I do that is so that this is the side that's going to be open if you want side tabs, photo tabs. And I like a neat edge. If you don't want the side tabs and you're not going to want to make, the book is large as it is. It holds quite a few photos, but if you really want an extra large book and you want those side tabs, then I would recommend doing it this way, leaving that open and just mitering your corners on the end. This side you're not going to miter because that's going to go against the hinge, and you want a solid edge for that. Now, if you don't want the large book and the side tabs, the extra large book and the side tabs, then what you can do is don't miter these. Go ahead and leave them as is, and then I will show you when I go to glue it what else you will need to do. So. Now, the book that I made with the new Echo Park Cartabella Disney collection, I don't have side tabs, so let me go ahead and, so I folded over my score lines, burnished them down. I'm adding my glue, and I'm using the art glitter glue that you can find in Tammy's store at countrycraftcreations.com. And then I'm going to take one of my 8x8s and I'm just going to line it up side by side, edge to edge, top to bottom, and score it down. Now, if you do not want the, let's move that too quick. If you do not want the side flap, then what you're going to do is you're not going to miter these corners, and you're just going to add a thin line of glue right here and then fold it over just like you would. And that way you'll have one side that is closed, which will be your right-hand side, and your left-hand side will be your opening for your hinge. Now, this album I am making with the side tabs because the next one I make, I'm going to make it even larger by adding the side tabs for photos. So, okay, that's page 4, and let's make one more. So we're going to we're going to burnish it, or score it, I'm sorry, at 1/2 inch and at 8.5. We're going to go ahead and fold our score lines over, miter your one corner if you're going to leave your side opening. Don't miter if you're not. Burnish it down. I'm going to add my glitter glue. And again, as you can see from my walkthrough, this album holds lots of photos, and so you really don't need the side photo tabs. But if you've got a lot of pictures for your Disney trip, then it makes it a great way to add all those photos in without having to do a second album. Okay, so there's my 5 pages, and we're going to go ahead and start on page 1. I need to find out what side. Okay, this is my hinge side here. So page 1, you're going to need, and I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way because I got a score. So you're going to need a few pieces cut. So your largest piece is going to be an 8 by 8.5. Okay. And I did put the cutting guide up there, so if you already have your pages cut, that will be good. So this is going to be our left-hand side flap. So you want to score it at 1/2 inch. You're going to need an 8 by 8, and that's going to be your right-hand flap, and you're going to score it at 1/2 inch. And I'm just going to score it at 7.5. Just helps me to know what side my flaps are going to go on. Okay. Then you're going to need a piece that is 5.5 by 9. All right. And this is the outside pocket. So let me go ahead and show you the page. So we're going to have a top flap. We're going to have a bottom flap. You're going to have a side pocket here. You're going to have a large flap that opens up and another flap that opens up. Okay. So on this one, it's 5.5 by 9. So with the 9 at the top, you want to score it at 1/2 inch, and then you want to score it at 8.5. Rotate it and score it at 1/2 inch. So what you're doing is you're making your pocket. Okay. So we got these 3 pieces. And then we're going to need 2 pieces that are 5 by 6. And this is your top flap and your bottom flap. So with the 6 inch at the top, score it at 1/2 inch. And the same with the other one. 6 inches at the top, score it at 1/2 inch. And then your last piece for this page is going to be a 3 by 6. You're going to score it, and this is a pocket, so you're going to score it at 1/2 inch, 5.5, rotate it, and then score it at 1/2 inch. All right. So let's go ahead and get this page started. So for this page, I'm going to start with my 2 largest pieces, which are my left and my right flap. So furnish my fold line. I'm going to come in because it's the same width as my page. I'm going to go ahead and miter my corners a little bit. Add my adhesive. Got my page. Check to make sure which side is my hinge side versus my open side. And I'm going to just line this right up on the left-hand side, edge to edge. Now I did round my corners on my other album, but because I haven't, I'm just making this album because my first video when I made, you couldn't hear any volume on it, and it was on my old computer, so I'm not sure what was going on there, so I'm just redoing it now. So I'm hoping that this has good sound, and that. I do have the sound all the way up, I believe. Yes. Okay, now on the right-hand side, you're going to, this is your 8 by 8. So you're going to have, you have that 1/2 inch score line. You want to burnish it, miter your corners. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my glue. And I'm just matching that right up to the right hand side. Okay. You're going to take your top flap and your bottom flap. You scored those at a 1/2 inch on one side. Go ahead and burnish them over. They're both the same size, so it doesn't matter which one's the top and which one's the bottom. These are 5 inches, so that's going to give you 1.5 inches on each side. So I'm just going to add my adhesive, and I'm going to line it up to the 1/2 inch mark. And it should come to 1.5 to 6.5. And that should be the middle. And I'm going to do the same thing with my bottom flap. I'm just going to turn it around. Match it up to 1.5 and this 6.5. But before I make sure I lay it all the way down, I want to make sure that these two sides that they meet are even when I put the top flap down. Make sure you get that all the way to the edge. Sometimes it's hard to do when you're doing it upside down. Okay. Your next piece is going to be your 3x6, which is your pocket for your top flap. Go ahead and miter your corners. Remember when you're mitering your corners on your pockets to always leave room between your two edges. So if you can see that, there's a little edge room between my two edges there. Your pocket will lay flat without bulk. And I'm just going to line that up on the bottom of the top flap. Okay. Now I will add a magnet here and a magnet there to hold this whole page down. Okay, so our last piece is our, what was it, 5.5 by 9. This is your large pocket on the inside of the top of the flap. So go ahead and again miter your corners. Okay. Now, if you want a decorated punch on any of these pockets, I would go ahead and do it as well before you adhere them, or fold it over your burnish line, your score line. So I'm matching this right up at the 1.5. So right at the edge of my in top and bottom flap. So when it's shut, it's hidden by the flap. And yet you have a 1.5 inch here that you put your pattern paper here. And then your pocket, you've got a 1.5 inch here where your inside insert can come out a little ways. And I'm just going back over because it's going to be a little bit bulky and re-varnishing them. Okay, that's page 1. You can turn it over to page 2. I'll show you page 2 on this one. We're just going to make a large tag. You're going to have a top flap, a bottom flap, and then your pocket. And this is what holds your page down, your flaps down, is your tag. So on this one, you should have a 4x7, which is going to be your pocket. Whoops, as I throw things. So go ahead and score it at 1/2 inch on the 4-inch side, turn it around and score it at 1/2 inch and 6.5. You're going to have a 5x6, which is going to be your top flap, and it's 5 across the top. You want to score it at 1/2 inch. Your bottom one is a 7x6, so the 7 across the top, scored at 1/2 inch. Okay. Now your opening for your hinge should be on your, if you close the top, should be on your right side. And we're going to take, I'm going to do the bottom one first, and I'm going to fold that over and burnish it. Now, these are 6 inches wide, so you're going to leave 1 inch on each side. And I'm just using my scoreboard here to line it up with the 1 inch and 7 inches. So it gives me 1 inch on each side. Turn it over, and I'm going to add the top flap. And again, lining it up on the 1 inch and also with my top flap, or my bottom flap, I'm sorry. And I'm going to do my 4x7, which is my pocket, and go ahead and miter the corners on that. And I'm just going to attach it to the bottom of the bottom flap. And that's going to come down here. Now, this is a little bit longer, so you can trim it if you want, or you can do the corners. And that's going to and then you're going to make a 5.5 by 7.5 for your inside tag. Page 1 is done. Okay, page 2, we're going to make the one flap here, which also has the tag holder, and a left flap, a right flap, and then your base page. So for these, you're going to need one piece that is cut a 3.5 by 7, 3.5 by 7, okay, a 5.5 by 6.5, a 6.5 by 6, a 6 by, I guess I need 5.5. And then you're also going to need a 4 by 8, which is your actual flap. Okay, so we're going to start with this here. And we're going to, the 4 by 8, we're going to score it a 1/2 inch on the right hand side, or left hand side, I'm sorry. The 6.5 by 5.5 is going to be a pocket. So you're going to score it 6.5 at the top. You're going to score it a 1/2 inch. 6.5 on the other way, you're going to score it at, or 5.5 the other way, you're going to score it at a 1/2 inch each. For some reason that isn't right. So it should be 5 by 6, not a 5.5. So let me go ahead and cut this. Okay, so it should be 5 by 6, not 5.5 by 6. So you're going to score at the 6.5, you're going to score it at a 1/2. Rotate it, score it a 1/2 inch, and then score it at 4.5. And that's going to be your pocket for this right here. And then your 6.5 by 6, you want to score that at 6. So 6.5 across top, score it at 6. And then your 5.5 by 6, you want to score that with the 6 across the top. You want to score that at a 1/2 inch. Okay, so let's get page 2 up here. So page 2, you're going to start with your 5.5 by 6. Okay, I'm going to turn this just a bit here. It's 6 inches long, so I'm going to line it up with the 1 inch mark. So I had an inch on the top and an inch on the bottom, and line it up there. Okay, I'm going to take my right hand side flap, 6.5 by 6, fold it over, burnish it, and again I'm going to put this at the 1 inch mark as well. Again, making sure that my flaps line up with one another. And they do. Okay. Going to take our 4x8. I've got it scored at a 1/2 inch. Fold that over. We're going to add that right on top of the left-hand side flap. So this one you want to line it up at your 2 and your 6. That gives you 1 inch on each side of that flap. Okay, and then you've got your, I need to score this again. You want your 6 by 5.5, or your 6 by 5. That's the one that I told you wrong. So it's 6 by 5. And you've scored it on 3 sides, so mine are your corners. Okay. And this one you're going to sit right on top of your 4 by 8 flap that you just added. Okay, and your last piece was your 3.5 by 7, which is your tag for inside that pocket. Okay, so there's page 2. We're going to flip it over and we're going to do the back of page 2. The back of page 2 is you've got a right hand side flap with a pocket, and it's a smaller pocket, and then I added a cut apart on top of it. You got a left hand flap, you got another right one, and then you got another right one. So you're going to need a 6 by 8, and that's your right hand side flap. So you want to score that 6 across, 5.5. Score it at 5.5. Your next one is going to be a 5.5 by 8, 5.5 across, scored at 5. That's your left hand side flap. You're going to do a 5.5 by 5.5, scored at 5.5. And then you're going to do a okay, the next one is a 5.5 by 5.5, or 5 by 5.5. And I have it cut at 6, so I need to cut some off there. Okay. And we're going to score that at 1/2 inch. And your last one is your little pocket, which is going to be a 3 by 5. And you want to score it at 1/2 inch, rotate it 1/2 inch, and then 4.5. Okay. So we're going to do the 2 large flaps first, and because they're both the same length of the paper, I do mine on my corners on that, my edges. So your 6 by 8 is going to go on your right hand side. Your 5.5 by 8 is going to go on your left hand side. Okay. Your 5 by 5.5 is going to go on your left hand side. And I'm putting these at 1 1/4 by 6 3/4. And that should give you a 1 1/4 on each side. Then I'm going to take my 5.5 by 5.5. And that's going to go on my right hand side. And again, I'm just going to match it up. And then your pocket, now this is going to be your option. I'm going to go ahead and put mine on. You don't have to. You can wait until you put your pattern paper on. But I'm going to go ahead and put mine on. And then what I do is I usually piece this afterwards with the pattern paper. So. Okay, page 2, front and back are done. Let's go on to page 3. page 3, you're going to do a flap with a side pocket, another flap, and another flap. So you're going to want a 6x8 . You're going to need 2 6x8s, and I only cut one, so let me cut another one. Excuse me. Okay. Excuse me again. Okay. So we need 2 6x8s. So let's go ahead and score those. You're going to score both of those at a 1/2 inch. 6 across, 8 down, 1/2 inch. Okay. Then you're also going to need a 5 by 6.5, 6.5 across, 5 down, scored 1/2 inch, and then 5 across, 5.5, 5 by 5.5, scored a 1/2 inch with the 5.5 across the top. Nope. Sorry, that was wrong. 5 across the top, scored a 1/2 inch. I think that looked right. Okay. Doesn't look like I cut out the pocket for this one either. Okay, I'm just going to add my 2 6x8s to both sides of my paper to make my flaps. That's going to flap over that way. Side to the right over the left. We're going to take our 5.5 by 5. And again, we're going to measure it up at 1.5 and 7. No. Sorry, 1 1/4 and 6 3/4. Okay, and then your 5 by 6.5 is going to go on your left-hand side. So 1 1/4. Okay, and we're going to need to cut our pocket. So I want it 6.5 by 4. Okay, so we're going to score this 4 across the top, 1/2 inch, rotate it 1/2 and 1/2. And that goes right here, and on the left-hand side. And then you got your pocket. And I put cut aparts in that one. Okay, flip it over. Okay, this one is, you've got a flap with an outside pocket. You've got an inside flap, another inside flap. Okay, and then those all close back, and then this flap's open. You've got a large inside top, and then you've got the pocket on the bottom. So let's get those ones. Okay. So your largest is going to be a 7.5 by 8. So with the 7.5 across the top, you want to come down and score 1/2 inch. And this is going to be your top flap. Okay. Your next piece is going to be your 6 by 7. 7 at the across the top. You want to score at 1/2 inch or 6.5, because that's going to be your left hand or right hand side flap. You're going to have a 4 by 5, and you want to score that at 1/2 inch or 4.5 inch. You're going to have a 5 by 5 flap, and you want to score that at a 1/2 inch. And then you've got a 3.5 by 5, which is your outside pocket. So you want to score that at a 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch on all 3 sides. And then you've got your inside pocket, and you want to do the same. You want to score a 1/2 inch on 3 sides. Okay. So let's start with, I'm going to start with the inside pocket. And that is your 4 by 9. I'm going to miter my corners. Okay. Make sure I've got the bottom. I'm going to add my pocket there. Now I'm going to do my top, which is my 7.5 by 8. And I'm going to miter my edges on that one. I'm going to use my 6 by 7. And I'm attaching this to the right-hand side of the top flap. I'm going to use, the next one I'm going to do is my 4 by 5. Put that right on the top of that one. My 5 by 5. I'm going to center it so my 4 by 5 is in the middle. And then you go ahead and you've got your last piece is your pocket. And this one I am not adding to my page because I do add this after I put my pattern paper down. So I'm just going to attach it with the paper clip just so I know it goes there. Okay, page 3 is done, and we'll move on to page 4. Okay, I apologize. I thought I was filming page 4 and 5, and obviously I wasn't. So I went ahead and completed 4 and 5, but I'm going to walk you through it. So on page 4, you need 2 pieces of 6 by 8. You need 1 6 by 7.5 and 1 6 by 4.5. So on the 2 6 by 8, you want to score those at a 1/2 inch on the 6 inch at the top. And so you have your 2 inside flaps. All right, so you're going to add 1 on each side of the page. Your 6 by 7.5, you're going to score it at a 1/2 inch on the 7.5 inch side, and that is your bottom flap. So you're going to add the flap inside on the main page so it comes up, okay? And then your last piece is your 6 by 4.5, and on your 4.5 inch side, you're going to score it at a 1/2 inch, and you're going to add that on the top of the inside of your page as well. So your 2 side flaps come in, your bottom flap comes up, and your top flap comes down. All right. And again, I apologize for this. So back of page 4, you're going to need 1 3 by 7, 1 5 by 8.5. All right, and then a 7.5 by 8 and a 6.5 by 6. Okay, so let's start with the largest one, which is your 7.5 by 8. You're going to, on the 7.5 inch side, score it at 1/2 inch, and you're going to add that to your right hand side of your your page. Then your 5.5 by 8, you're going to score that at your with your 8.5 at your top. You're going to score a 1/2 inch and add that on your left hand side. And I brought that in about a 1.5 inch, so that gave me 1.5 inches on top and bottom. Then your 6 by 6.5, you're going to, on the 6.5 at the top, you're going to score it at a 1/2 inch, and then attach it to the top of your main page. And again, I left 1 inch on each side. And then the last piece is your 3 by 7, which you're going to score on 3 sides, and that's your pocket for the top of your top flap. Then page 5. Page 5, you're going to need 2 pieces of cardstock that are cut 5.5 by 6, and 1 piece that is cut by 3.5 by 9. You're going to add your side flaps first. So this 5.5 by 6 on both of them, you want to score at a 1/2 inch with the 5.5 at the top. You're going to put one on the left hand side and the right hand side. Once you attach your side flaps, then you want to attach your 3.5 by 9, which is your pocket, and you should have scored that at a 1/2 inch on 3 sides. The last page, the back of page 5, is you want a 8.5 by 8, a 4 by 9, a 7 by 6, and a 6 by 6, and a 4 3/4 by 4. Okay, so starting with your 4 by 9, it's your side pocket here, scored at your 1/2 inch on 3 sides, and you're going to lay that on your right hand side on your main page. Then you're going to add your 8.5 by 8 with the 8.5 at the top, scored a 1/2 inch, and add that to your left hand page, and that's your large flap. Your 7 by 6, 7 at the top, 1/2 inch down, and attach that right on top, leaving 1 inch on each from top to bottom. And then your 6 by 6, you're going to add that right on top of the last flap. And then you're going to cut yourself the 3 3/4 by 4 which is going to be a pocket. So you want to score that on 1/2 inch on 3 sides. And I did not add this pocket because what I do is I add it after I papered the page, the flap, and then I'll add it because I leave a room from the bottom. So I off-center it actually. So here's the last page. So you're going to open that, and then you got your large flap, and then you got your side pocket. For the front of page 5, you got your right hand flap, your left hand flap, and your inside pocket. Back of page 4, you've got your top flap with your pocket. You got your long side flap on your left and your full side flap on your right. Front of page 4, top flap, bottom flap, and then 2 side flaps. And again, I apologize because I really thought I was videoing, had the recorder going the whole time I was doing the pages, and I apologize. I hope if you have any questions, just send me an IM on Facebook, or you can send me an email, or you can ask me right here on the bottom of the video tutorial, and I will see those questions as well and respond. It's not that hard. It's very easy, and as long as you follow the cutting guide, you should be okay. Thanks for watching. Appreciate y'all. Bye-bye.